Welcome back to Not a Straight Line with me, Pete Daly-Dickson. This is the show that explores the non-linear journeys of artists and entrepreneurs to inspire you as you zigzag through your own non-straight line life. And this week, I'm joined by Jason Leister, who, by all accounts, has made a career from living as far from a straight line as he can possibly get. Jason is known best for his daily email, where he shares his thoughts on business approaches to client relationships and marketing in the modern world. There is a veritable bevy of story beneath the surface that he gives us a glimpse of in this episode. Hailing from a Mennonite upbringing, he completed school as he was expected to until he cast off the shackles of his music career to walk his own path. And with his wife, Maren, he has extracted himself and his family from society's matrix and its rules to establish a haven in Hawaii where he can become his best self through business and raising his family. Life for Jason is simple and his message is strong. Help others first to create the best life for yourself. Sounds oddly familiar, actually. I really appreciated Jason taking the time to chat and know that you'll both enjoy and be challenged by our conversation. Let's jump in. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, or even if you're not, we start every episode with a simple breathing exercise to bring the three of us, my guest, me, and you, the listener, into the same space together. So we're just going to close our eyes. We're going to do 3 physiological sighs. So a physiological sigh is 2 breaths in through the nose, held for a beat, and then breathe out through the mouth. So you just want to breathe in. And again. One last time. Mr. Jason Leister, welcome to the Not a Straight Line podcast. It's a joy to have you with me.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
So before we climb to the top diving board and jump into the conversation, just for the sake of the listener, orient yourself geographically for us so we know where you are in this great, big, lovely world of ours.
Right now, I am in Hawaii, of all places, where we moved our family for no reason other than that we thought it would be awesome to live here, and we were right. So I'm looking out at the ocean right there, and that's where I am.
Amazing. I'm sure the zag that took you to Hawaii will come up in conversation. Yes. I loved the email that you sent me yesterday saying you've had so many zags, you feel almost dizzy with it.
Yes, definitely over the legal limit.
As we do kind of think of jumping into the conversation with that first question, of all of the zigs and zags and twists and turns of your life as you took a moment just to reflect when you read that question, which one jumped out at you the most?
I thought about that. I would have to say that probably being persistent enough to keep working at getting my future wife to give me the time of day probably is the zag that is responsible for more of what is in my life today than any other I can think of. We have 10 kids, both kind of work for ourselves. We've both kind of zigged and zagged in some sort of synchronistic, universally resonant way that is amazing because couples don't always do that, So we kind of reinvented ourselves several times together. I would have to point to that.
So tell me about when you first met her. What's her name?
Her name is Maren. I first met her the day we were moving into the dorms. We went to music school in Rochester, New York. I played the pipe organ. She played the oboe. And I just saw her standing there and knew that was it. Took a little while to make my dreams real.
It took a while for her to realize the same thing, you mean?
Yes. But I'm persistent. And so it worked out and it's been beautiful.
And how long did you have to be persistent for?
A couple months till I got, we did something together. So in the big scheme of things, a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. So pipe organ, that's not your common or garden instrument to play. What's the story there?
Well, when I was a kid, really what I wanted to be was a magician. But quickly after, I didn't have the creative aptitude at the time to sort out how you could be a magician when you hate performing in front of other people. So I had to drop that and go into music of all things, where of course I would still wrestle with that same thing for decades. But my piano teacher happened to teach that, and I got started on it when I was, 11, did church jobs starting at 13. And so like that was my whole life until the universe had other plans. Like 15 years later, after college, we got out, realized all of a sudden, like this was not quite the direction to go, not without a fair amount of pain. I didn't go willingly.
So were you learning the piano?
Yeah, piano, and then pipe organ, and organists are...
What drew you to that?
I certainly like the music of Bach. It makes a lot of sense to my brain, just the structuring. My life is about structuring. These days I use words and ideas, but back then I used music notes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that's probably why I got started, because there's not a lot of reason to put in countless hours in a cold church where your fingers are freezing off. Like, there's got to be some larger motivation. Also, like, it was just kind of expected of me, and I wasn't quite online enough to actually check in with whether or not I was going somewhere I really wanted to go.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I refer to myself jokingly in that part of life as a straight A sheep. Like, if there was a rule set out, an achievement that could be made or achieved for accolade or validation, like I was on it. And so that leads to a very outward in kind of existence. And you make a lot of decisions that aren't right for you ultimately. Although, like I said, without that, I wouldn't be with who I am and everything would be totally different. So you have to appreciate what the universe is doing.
Yeah. Did you grow up with siblings?
Yeah. 4 of us, 4 kids in our family. None of them went into music.
Where are you?
I'm second from the bottom.
You say none of them or all of them went into music?
None of them. No. I was the only one.
You said earlier that you're doing what was expected of you.
Mm-hmm.
Was that with regards to the music or just generally?
Oh, just generally. Like, somewhere in my being, I came to this plane with, maybe it's from childhood before conscious memory, but like a pre-wired emotional reaction to receiving displeasure from authority, right? They're not happy with you, and it triggers these terrible, like a physiological response in you. And so if you allow that to happen, your life kind of gets molded by the structures that are around you. You have to do this to get an A in school. You have to do this to get in here. And it's a very backwards way of living, which is why I speak and talk like I do today, because I experienced what the opposite of that is. And my work really is about showing people where they might be doing that in their own situation.
Yeah. Did you get a sense that your parents were also setting expectations on you, or were you almost like making assumptions about expectations?
Probably. I mean, it was probably a story in my head, and certainly we're all doing the best we can. So I don't, I feel like consciousness has been changing so much from generation to generation that it's almost impossible to answer a question like that, only because I don't know how they were viewing, how the world looked from their eyes then. I don't know if they've thought thoughts that I spend my days thinking about. Like, I don't know that that's where people were for the most part. They were just trying to get through life.
Yeah. How would you use an interesting turn of phrase there? How would you articulate as succinctly as possible how you see the world now?
Well, to me, the world is a co-creative reflection of who I am. I'm not the only one calling the shots, but I exert a huge amount of influence over what's out there based on what's in here. That becomes your reality.
And how did you get to that? 2 questions just to clarify. How did you get to that, and how do you know that to be true?
To me, truth is like a resonance. Like, I don't know if that's true for you, but I know what it feels like in me to say that out loud and know it's true. And much of the truth that I know, I don't even have I just know it. Like, it's not like that an apple is red. It's like a deeper knowing with something way beyond you. And so that's why I can say it so confidently with absolutely nothing to back it up. Like, I don't really care, because I just know that it feels that way. I discovered all of this by trying to change my reality. At first, I tried to change it with no understanding. That creates a lot of emotional disturbance as you come up against structures that you don't understand how to mold.
So what sort of things were you doing?
Well, let's say back in the music world, if you said yes when you should have said no, and you got yourself somewhere that you really didn't want to be, and then you're unhappy the whole time and feel like you're going to burst because the ultimate issue is you shouldn't have been there at all, but you want to change it. So you might complain or you might just feel pressure within you, like all these like symptoms of you're in the wrong place for you. And I had no idea what to do with that. So on one hand, I had to learn how to tell myself the truth about me, what I should be involved in and not. And that's a daily practice. Definitely a process, not an event to come back from that habit. But also I had to like realize that what was going on inside of me, it was just out of control. Like just how emotionally immature we are all raised to be. And I'll speak for men because I am one, but like there are so many we're raised to be like man babies, you know? Physical form is a man, but like inside we're that little boy looking for his mommy. And like that is not a powerful place to be. And so I realized that I didn't know what to do about it. And then over the years, I developed skills and awareness to like work with that. And then the goal obviously is to kind of move into the driver's seat of your own life because you are there anyway. It's just we don't know about it and we don't know what to do with that responsibility and privilege, really.
And I very recently joined your email list on the back of a recommendation from a very dear friend of mine, Rob, who's been stalking you for quite
I know that name. I know that name. Yes.
Rob Drummond, yeah,
Yes.
for quite a while. He got me started with this podcast. I wanted the first conversation to be with someone that was going to be very kind to me.
Yeah.
And you'll hear I'm kind of giving you a bit of a spoiler here. At the end of the conversation with a guest, I always ask them to tag who they would like, who they think should be on the podcast. And he tagged you way back when.
Many thanks to Rob.
So when you replied and accepted my invite, he was like, "Ooh, yes, can't wait to listen for that." So we're recording this for you, Rob. So we better not let him down.
Yes.
I just want to go back. We've skated over your childhood. We just talked about a few little things, but the even younger Jason, before he got into music, what was it like? What are your memories of childhood and school? And did you get on there? And just kind of give us a feel and a flavor for what life was like for Jason growing up.
My first memories are, I don't know if I was lying or if I was actually experiencing it, but my first memories are convincing my mom not to take me to school because I dreaded going there so much. So right there, I was onto something, even though it would take me many decades to come back around and clarify exactly what the problem was. Unfortunately, once I got there, my will was so weak that I just fell in line and spent the next 20 years trying to please other people, which I did very successfully. All I wanted to do, though, during those years was be a magician. I had every magic book. I had every trick I could buy. I would order tricks from like some place in Chicago and sit outside waiting for them to be delivered. Like that was all I wanted to do.
Where did that come from?
I have no idea, except like I do magic tricks today. They're just different. Shifting someone's perspective on themselves is what I'm good at. Building an entire business around that awareness and understanding, and then an understanding at the same level of who they're trying to serve, that's what I'm good at. So if you look back, me being enamored with those instant shifts that leave people just kind of, they don't know what to say, like that's what I'm here to do. And I just happened to find my way to business, luckily, because you can eat a lot better when you do it in that realm.
So when someone comes to you, do you find the people that come to you to work with you have been in your orbit for a while?
Hopefully, because given a model like the one that I've created, like I didn't have a master plan here. This is all bumbling around in the dark, putting one piece together. One of the pieces was sending emails out every day. Over the decades, the name of that email and the tone and the messaging has changed dramatically as a reflection of me. very angry early on because those emails came as a result of me being stupid enough and not street smart enough to lose a $200,000 a year retainer. So like that got me started writing self-therapy. Really, it was way cheaper than any other route.
So, sorry, somebody was paying you
Yes.
200,000.
Yeah. And like a week or two before Christmas, they were like, we don't need you anymore. And of course, when you look back, I can see where I planted the own seeds of my demise. Very educational. But that got me writing every day to people that I wanted to help. And so when I've done that now for like 13 years, every day.
Was that modeled for you by anyone? Where did that idea come from just to start?
I don't even know. I mean, there are a couple people in my little universe that were doing that. Certainly Ben Settle's been around forever. I don't know. No, I just had no other place to put the anger. And I needed money. And so, like, I've made a life out of helping other people. And you can do very well if you do that strategically for the right people. But there is also always this part of me that it's like, I want to do that for me. As I've grown, I realize that's not necessarily why I'm here. And so I don't need lights on my name. But like, that's what I was angry about. Here, I had invested my whole life and agreed to certain terms and really put myself in a dumb situation. And then just kind of was shown the door. And so to answer your question, what that means is when you are used to writing to people every day, referrals for me are the worst kind of client, which is completely opposite of anything that anyone will ever tell you. I would rather wait 4 years on the other side of 4 years of my emails and then have a client appear from that than be introduced to a cold referral. It's just, there's no comparison at all in my book.
One of the projects that Rob and I have recently started is a new podcast called Help Before You Sell. You know, we talk about all the different ways you can do that. Podcasting is obviously one of those. Writing regular emails is one of those. And what I'm hearing is that fundamentally that's what you do. You help people through your daily emails, and then you sell to them.
Yeah, and over that amount of time, you realize that help can mean a lot of different things, and certain kinds of help lead to a sustainable exchange with you, and certain kinds of help, while just as helpful, do not. And so you learn that the nuances behind this word, that it's not quite as simple as people might think. Like, help can be teaching, but teaching often leads to nothing. Help can be inspiring and empowering, and oftentimes that can lead to action. So you become this kind of artist with different tools, not paints, obviously, that is trying to connect what you want with what the world wants and to do it in a way where no one loses. So like that's been the road I've been on.
Well, we need to make sure we don't talk too much about that because it seems to me that we need to invite you onto the Help Before You Sell podcast as well. I am curious though that when you said you lost this $200,000 a year retainer, but you needed money, so you started writing emails. I mean, to my mind, there doesn't seem to be a particularly straight line between sending a daily email and making money. What was the thought process there?
I had experience to share. Like I had gone from being a musician one day to I woke up one day and realized that I had learned a lot starting my own business online. My wife, our first business online was selling oboe reeds, like the little pieces of wood that oboists use to play. You have to make those by hand if you're worth anything. And a lot of people can't or don't. And so we started a business online. She would make them and I would sell them. And so, I just, like everybody, I taught myself everything about marketing online. Woke up one day and then realized, oh, people will actually give me money for this. And I had realized that I was pretty good at word containers, doing the thinking required to generate an idea that's big enough, meaning it has enough emotional content that when you say it in a certain way, people do things. I mean, that's all I'm doing with people I work with, right? We're taking ideas based on who they are and telling the truth about them. But my stupid human trick is that I know how to tell a version of that truth that develops attraction to what they have. And so I realized I could do this for other people. And so that's where the writing came. I started writing ebooks about my early days as like a direct response copywriter, now how I had figured out the freelancing business there, and just counterintuitive things I had learned. Like it's not really about the writing, and like just so many things that I had learned mainly by trial and error. And so my own work kind of started there. My first project was called Clients Suck, obviously, because that's what I thought at the time. It morphed into something called The Art of Clients, which was really a business focused on helping anybody who works with a client deal with that, like what that means, from attraction to management to inner stuff, all of that. And then as that went by, I realized that I had really a keen understanding, but also it's just easy for me to see someone in their best possible light and to package them up for the world that way.
Is that like a almost instinctual, immediate thing, or do you need to spend time with people to figure that out?
I talk to them, and I feel like most people, because of how we are raised, have completely lost touch with what truly makes them them. They have also been trained that anything easy for them could no way be valuable. They have also been trained that there are certain parts of you that you just can't let out. The edges must be smooth, everything must be shiny, and so they walk out in the world looking like everyone else and then wondering, well, how can I make myself different? The answers are looking at them in the mirror, but it's a learned blindness that we're all trained into. That's what I see. And so I just see what they have learned to not see.
So in the very brief, and this is potentially going to go out in vulnerable waters, and we can deflect away if you want. So in the brief interactions that we've had from a very first email to you with the back and forth, and now the brief amount of time we've spent chatting here, what do you see in me, or what questions would you ask of someone to kind of start to get underneath them?
I would ask them, why do you think you're here on this plane right now? And some people will have no idea, and some people will have a very good idea. And then I'll ask them things like, well,
But even that question, do you get like confused bubbles over people's head when you say on this plane? That's an unusual turn of phrase.
this is where the emails save me, because nobody who's been on my list and not run away will be confused about a question like that, right?
Got it.
But a cold referral, they would look at me like I was crazy.
Yeah. So I understood the question because I've been on your list.
Yeah. And then from there, it's questions like, well, let's look back over the last 20 years of your life. What are the things you've done that leave you with more energy after than you had before? Most of this was intuitive. Along the way, I've discovered things like human design, gene keys, which really validate what I'm feeling and make it a little bit quicker and give me something that I can show somebody so it doesn't look like I'm just doing voodoo over here.
Can you give kind of broad brushstrokes of both those things? I've heard of human design, but not gene keys.
Human design is a revelation. So knowledge was given to some guy from some unknown being. So if that's not enough to scare most people away, then we might have something in common. But basically, it is a wiring schematic for your physical form. So when you were born, the information stream coming through, that's flowing through us right now, imprinted on your body, like kind of programmed us in certain ways, right? That's why astrology has some truth to it. That's, because that information stream means something. So human design is just about understanding what that is for you so that you can make the right decisions for yourself. And when I discovered what that was, I had already done it. I had already made the changes just by trial and error, bumbling around. But when I heard someone look at one sheet of paper and tell me all of that stuff about myself that no one should be able to know, super practical and very helpful.
Right. What did you hear reflected back that you had already figured out on your own?
So this was at a time when the name of my business was Incomparable Expert. I packaged people up to be incomparable experts in whatever area of the marketplace they're in. And she said to me, you are here to provide direction to people that leads them to themselves and to a powerful expression of who they are, and to do it in extremely practical ways. So like right there, do you know how long I've been looking for my life purpose? And of course, my purpose is just to be me, right? And I heard that you say that very same thing on one of the podcasts that I listened to. But who that is, obviously, is the mystery. And for her to just read that out, to say things like, everything that you do should be in response. I mean, I'm a direct response copywriter. Like, I've been living in a world of response. I don't sell anybody on anything. Like, I've never asked anyone to buy anything except during like a 3-month period selling cars when I was really lost, like many years ago. Apart from that, like they ask me. So I've taken that knowledge and completely used it to completely rearrange how my business works. So that kind of stuff is so valuable when you're working with someone, because for me, it confirms and validates. It gives a mechanism that's a little more, even though it's a revelation, it's a little easier for people to grasp and believe. It's empirical. They can look at their life and say whether or not it's been true for them.
It's true. Yeah.
And I can build my arguments for my work, which is taking how someone is and figuring out what problem they can solve, because that's business.
I know, I think I know who I am. I mean, certainly on this podcast, the space for these conversations and the conversations I'm having with people I've recognized is not common. It's not a common ability in people to have these kind of deep conversations. But in terms of what problem that solves for people, I think that's the gap for me. I'm struggling to bridge talking to incredibly fascinating people like you and like actors who are at the top of their career in the West End and former, I think in America it's Shark Tank. In the UK it's Dragon's Den. I had one of the original dragons on my podcast a couple of weeks ago. This doing this thing that I do really, really well and making money from it. That's what's frustrating me.
So to me, they're like, who you are doesn't change, right? That's like the one constraint we get, that if you're willing not to betray yourself for your whole time here, we can actually work with that. And it's so helpful, because with zero constraints, getting a solution is very difficult, even with the one constraint.
When you say willing not to betray yourself, how do you see people betraying themselves?
Spending their entire lives doing things they hate with people they can't stand for stories and excuses that they've told themselves are valid reasons to do those things. That is betraying yourself. It ends up in disease, broken relationships, chemical dependencies. All the bad stuff are not problems, they're symptoms, right? The primary problem is disconnection from self, which everything in our world is created to help you do more easily, more often, more definitely.
To betray yourself, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's assume that I'm willing not to betray myself. What's next?
So where I was going with that is, we have puzzle pieces, some of which are very well defined, like you. You are a very well defined puzzle piece. We don't have the picture on the front of the box. No one would buy it. No one buys puzzles without the picture on the front of the box, but our whole life is that. And so there are so many ways that these puzzle pieces could go together. So our brain is trained that you have this thing you can do really well. And how do I make money from that? Well, maybe you don't. Maybe that thing allows you to solve another problem, and that gets the attention of the audience for whom you do that, offer that solution. I write emails to a lot of people across the world who have no business, or they have what you could barely call a business, or a dream of a business. Those people have no money to invest in me solving their problems. They don't have any problems that are relevant to me, and it would be a disservice to them. But I write to them because other people see me writing to them. I can help them move forward.
Other people see you writing to them. What do you mean?
I've only ever attracted people who are at the top of their game or who are starting and don't have much of a game. I write those emails to both people, but only one of those sets of people are ever going to do any kind of exchange with me. If I wasn't writing those emails, those few people would never see me, because I don't go to the masterminds. I don't do the hobnobbing. That is not my thing. So I need to be seen somewhere. And my heart gets a lot of satisfaction from helping the people who have not yet expressed their full value in the world. But you can't eat with those people, right? So it's kind of an indirect path, is my point. And so I think one of the best things when you're solving a problem like this, it's not even finding the answer. It's like, what's the right question? What is the right question to ask?
Yeah.
And you are the one with the right questions. What does this life look like that you're pursuing, that this thing is supposed to be a vehicle for? Like, what is that really about that you're after? That's where I would start with people, because if we're not clear about that, it's not like we get everything we want, but we should just know the truth. Like, do you just want to be famous? Right? Do you just want someone to say he's great at this? Do you really want that $5 million? Like, I don't know. Everybody's got their own answers. They're all valid. But just to know what it really is lets you make better decisions. So I could ask you, what is this really about for you?
The immediate answer that came to mind is this. There's no way in 1,000 years that you and I would be having this conversation if I didn't have a podcast.
That's right. That's right. So I look at you in our short time together and I say, wow. I mean, I haven't looked at your human design chart. I haven't peppered you with like headache inducing questions, which is my normal thing.
Only a couple.
Only a few. But I look at you and I'm like, wow, here is a soul who actually cares enough to see someone else. That alone is a very tiny audience, but you can feel it coming from you. You can feel it with all the care you've taken in the lead up to recording these things. Like, if this was the Peter show, that feeling would come through, and that's not what it is. You would feel that at every step of the way, right? It is clearly not what you're here for, right? And so, given what you are here for, you seem to have a heartfelt interest in truly seeing other people. How can that be positioned as a solution to someone's serious problem, someone with the resources to solve that problem, someone who wants that problem solved today and not next year? And you just ask the universe that, and we see what comes up, and I think most of our, all of this sounds really well thought out looking back. It was not thought out.
That's why I think where the not a straight line came up, because when you're in it, it does.
It looks perfect, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's great. But you look back, you're like, holy fuck.
I switched to circles because I didn't know where the hell my line was supposed to go. And so my media platform, which I talk about a lot, a way to serve way more people than you could ever help, like that to me is how you build a business. That's how I want to do it. Seth Godin says, will they miss you when you're gone? Like, he has his unique way of talking about that. But that is a circle. That is spinning as this single part of a system that can spin by itself or that can serve as the central hub of a huge enterprise. I had no idea what the enterprise was supposed to look like, so I built the one self-contained spinning thing, the daily email. And I kept that going because my answers came from there. And so I got totally tired of making things the world doesn't want. Like, I spent a long time doing that. And then I finally realized, well, you've got to stop doing that because you don't know what they want. So why don't you just stick around long enough for them to help you figure it out? Then you can make stuff. But that is not a linear path. Like, we look at the guys who went linear and got lucky. And lucky means you were meant to do that. It doesn't mean you're not talented. It just means that your path took you there. But that path has nothing to do with me. And the fact that we make it as though it has something to do with us, that we can learn from that that's insane. And my experience shows me, that's your story. I can't take a part of your story and transpose it to me and think it's going to work out. That's how you end up frustrated. So I just started things that could exist on their own, one piece at a time. And this is what I do when I'm working with people. That lets us build the business the way it's supposed to look, meaning we need to get energy back for something to stay there. We don't build this 80-step thing, press go, and then hope it works. That's demoralizing.
You said something just a short while ago. The aim is to serve more people than you're ever going to. Well, what exactly did you say?
Yeah, serve far more people than you could ever work with.
Okay.
And what are we doing there? Well, we're helping a lot of people, but strategically, we're just stacking the numbers in our favor.
And you do that through your daily email?
That's right. I pay money to get people to read it for free. Yeah. So, when people talk about lead generation or something, I went through all these mind traps. It's just self-liquidating offers and I've got to get these leads to pay for themselves. And really? Do you? Did anybody ever hear of making an investment in your business where the money doesn't come back for 3 years? You never hear that when it comes to lead generation because people don't have the long view because the gurus can't have a long view because they have a launch now. But if that stuff worked for everybody, we'd all be doing it, but it doesn't. So the long view gives you way more of a chance of success. And the long view, it makes sense to invest in your future success, that maybe you would pay money to get a lead that does not realize any gain for 2 years. That's what I do. So if that's the truth, what has to change so I can still eat? And this is how we're just reverse engineering the picture on the front of the puzzle box.
Yeah, well, that's the question that comes to mind. Is I love the long view, and we've talked several times on the Help Before You Sell podcast. Is like this is a slow, long game. If the bailiffs are knocking at your door, what we're talking about here on Help Before You Sell is not going to help you right now. So how do you kind of square those two things together? Where yes, I understand that. I understand everything we've been talking about: the long view, take it slow, serve more people than you can ever work with, but I need to eat now. So what can I do now that is still kind of resonant with the concepts you're talking about?
The only way I've ever had money appear is to solve problems for people. So whether you solve problems in the long term or whether because you need to eat, you solve problems in the short term for now because that's what you have to do. Like you do one of those things. So when I needed something to happen, I would write a book and sell it. When I needed something to happen, I would start something for a few people that was focused on a very specific problem. I mean, I became my own solution because I'm like infinitely creative as we all are, right? People think that waiting means you're not doing anything. I mean, it reminds me of like The Secret to Life, which I've bumbled upon, seems to be, or How Not to Be Miserable might be a better title, to have a radical acceptance of what is in the moment, while at the same time holding this strong intention for the world you want to see. Can you have both of those happening without resistance? And you are right on that razor's edge in between, and that's every moment of your life. To me, that's like where I aspire to be. It's quiet there. There's no emotional turbulence. You're not becoming your worst enemy by doing things as a response to emotional programming. And yet you feel this like pull to like, I want to go there, but I'm here. And there's no problem with that. What is the best thing for me to do right now, given the situation I'm in while I'm here? I've found that extremely helpful. Otherwise, you're living in this constant, like, I'm here, but I should be there. I'm here, but I have to be there. Like, but that's not true. I mean, these are just mind games that people invest decades in, ruin their adrenal glands, like all manner of terrible things happen. And you're gonna generate an out there that is an exact reflection of that. And like, who wants to do that?
It's pretty profound shit.
Well, my last 25 years have been do you connect the profound stuff with like the practical? For a long time, I thought you had to choose. You know, I'm going to look out for you. I'm going to do what's in the client's best interest. But like when Friday comes and I have no money left, I got to sell something quick. And it took me a long time to realize that one being can embody all of these things. The exchange strategically can be engineered to happen. And that pure vibration of like heart, all of these things can be together, and they should be, because business is not this like separate thing. I don't know how people can silo it the way they do, or maybe they're not even, maybe it's just how they talk about it, but like business is me. Like it is no different than my life. I can't get away from myself there. I'm still there with myself, the one I can't stand. So I have to like merge it all together. And it's taken me a while to figure that out.
And does this apply, or rather say, how does this apply to larger organizations? Because you are your business, I am my business. There's just me. I mean, I'm collaborating with people, and we're kind of working on things together. But what about at a corporate level? You know, where you've got CEO and management uh, and all that.
I think it doesn't matter what level you're at. I'm here. I treat my life as like I'm doing art. Like we're all artists of our own life. And you can really do that in whatever container is right for you. I'm psychologically unemployable and I say things I shouldn't. I can't climb the ladder. I don't know how to play the political game. If you ever wanted my help on that, I am your worst choice because it's just not the container for me. But even in that container, imagine if someone knows who they are, knows why they're here, understands the problems they're tasked with solving, tries to serve far more people than they could ever get anything back from. Like all these principles are completely translatable to those scenarios. They may not be rewarded though, because that's a huge constraint to step into a system that is largely set and isn't interested in changing because of you.
They're set to exploit,
Yeah, you may
to.
get fired, for daring to think like this. So that's why I can't go there.
Do you work with people there though?
Very rarely. No. Have I? I've only had on less than these fingers interactions with people at that level, and it was terrible, unfulfilling, because I can't be too far separated from the guy in charge. The one who can say yes. You're the only one that can say yes. So I don't do well at navigating with people who can't say yes. It's just not the right place for me.
You mentioned about solving problems and providing things that people want. Evidently, people wanted the oboe reeds that Marin was making and you were selling. What happened? Why did that stop?
They did want them. I mean, I think of all the things that were so right about that business before I even knew anything about business. Recurring consumable product. I think we sold them for $35, which was more than double what everybody else was doing. People would order 5 and 10 at a time often. We started subscriptions. The problem is there are only 9,000 oboes in the world. The other problem is that it is a craft. And so the idea of living behind a reed desk would have driven my wife crazy. So there were pre-built limits to that, which is why it only grew to a certain amount. But it kept us alive for quite a few years.
You mentioned that you and your wife have reinvented yourself several times. Was there a reinvention before you moved to Hawaii? Where were you before?
Oh, yeah. I mean, how much time do we have?
Hey, we've got at least an hour.
We were both musicians. We both got to the quote unquote top and we're like, is this it? We realized that we got to some point of success on that mountain and we looked out and didn't like what we saw. That coincided with the birth of our first child, a daughter, in the hospital. And then looking back on that was not the experience that my wife wanted to choose again when our son was coming. And so that took us down the home birth route. And after that was over, and we realized we didn't die like everyone said you would, we realized, what else are they lying about? And that's when the whole thing started to break down. Like, you're talking to someone, got a queasy feeling in his stomach during college, the first month that he mailed in his credit card payment late because of what it would do to his credit rating. When you realize all of that is fake, which you only realize when you realize something else is fake. And then you start pulling on these little threads and the whole thing, like in The Wizard of Oz, the curtain opens and there's this little dude there who has been running your life and your parents' lives and their parents. And the whole thing just crumbled. My wife became a midwife. I continued on my own in business. I was never going to work for anybody again. And we started questioning everything, like stuff you're not even allowed to talk about on certain podcasts these days because you'll be swatted down by like the Borg. We questioned everything and our whole life shifted. So reinvention many times. My reinvention with business has largely been as a response to me more deeply understanding me. And really, depending how you get into business, a lot of us drink from the fire hose, thinking that the more content we consume about how to do it, the more successful we can be. And that's certainly the message because that's how you sell a thing, or that's how those guys sell a thing. You need what's in here, and then you'll be better off. No one tells you that like most of the problem in business is like the what to do. How to do it, once you settle on the what to do, is not that hard. What to do with your life, what to do to serve people, what exactly should that solution look like, and exactly for whom, and exactly what do they feel that would cause them to want that solution from you. What to do. That's the big problem. There aren't a lot of books about that because no one has those answers. And if someone had just told me,
because it's so individual.
It's your path. It's your universe. Like human design says, we're energies on trajectories. You were born, and probably before, you set your trajectory. I'm an energetic vector. I mean, that's what you're looking at here. And I was set on a path that I am now living. And luckily, I got the opportunity to realize I should learn how to deepen my experience of being in this vehicle that I think I drive, but many times I'm shown I don't drive, like something else is driving it. That I should work on having that be a magical experience no matter where the car goes. I'm glad I got that lesson because that does seem to be what the work is. Because if you're not looking clearly out of that car, you miss the opportunities for you because you were trying to figure it out. And so I did that for a long time, tried to figure it out. And then I realized that, like, in martial arts, if you tense up like that, like, you are dead. The only way you survive is just flow. And no one talks about flow in business. Like, some people do.
Well, do they talk about in terms of productivity? You got to get in your flow, and you've got to.
Yeah, but I just mean becoming a master of life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're not allowed to go into these parts, right? Because business has a formula, and if you follow the formula, you succeed. But that, of course, is a bunch of BS, because no one has your formula, because you're here to put it together. Like, this is me talking now. This is my deeply held belief. You have the formula. It needs to come out of you, and that's how you get the life that you're here to live. To the extent we can let go, we hold on out of fear, let go of how it should be or how it could be or how it did for that guy. Like, you're blind when all of that energy is invested in the gotta figure it out. The answer is somewhere out there.
Yeah, I've definitely been more in that environment and space than I am now. And I'm just thinking, I try and avoid going on LinkedIn, but when I do, I see people, with these things and say, DM, comment with DM, and I'll send you this thing that landed me 3,000 sales calls in 2024. It's uh, like, no, no, it's like that might have worked for you, but like you say, well, are you saying that all of the courses and stuff out there is like not bogus, but don't go there? Like,
No, I'm saying that the power that we grant to them is where the problem is. Like, I learn all the time. I love learning new things. To think that what I learn in one of those is going to make or break my life was the problem. Because then my quest became finding that out there. But, like, there's a lot. Like, everybody's different. I can't, like, build $1 million business selling socks. Like, I am not that guy. Some people can. They like business. They don't care what they're selling. But, like, I'm here to be an artist. Like, I have a song in here, and I used to play it this way, and now I just write it. And I sing it by helping other people sing, right? That is art. And my contention is that we are all here for that in our own way, because we are all here to express a very unique point of focused consciousness. Why wouldn't we spend our days doing that? And if we're going to, because we're in this 3D matrix at the moment, why wouldn't we figure out how to do that in a sustainable way? And that's the puzzle pieces that I'm looking to put together for somebody, because people say don't follow your passion because it's stupid. Why would you spend your life doing anything else? Like, really? Is that why you came? To, like, not do what you love for 40 years, and then if you live that long and don't get hit by a bus, then you can start to live. Like, you're going to end up lost in 40 years is what's going to happen, and you're going to have a lot of money, and it's going to feel really empty. So I've taken the much harder route, which is to figure out how to do what you love and prosper. Like, at the core of what I do, that makes me the happiest. Help somebody get on that path.
is that the essence of the problem, though? What you just described there, you took the harder route, and that all of our societal conditioning is about taking the easy route. Fast food and.
Well, I took the harder route because I'm just so obstinate that I couldn't admit that I would come here and have to do something all day long that I hated to pay bills. Like, I'm too strong-headed to, like, agree with that. I don't think that's why we're here. I think we're all here to do a remembering of the power we have to demonstrate an expression of ourselves that makes the world better. That's business. You just have to work with that a little bit and put it into some structures that make sense to the certain people who can complete that exchange.
It is hard, though, because of that conditioning that you spoke about, straight A sheep. And the longer you go through life, the more times you go around the sun, the more ingrained that becomes. So what's that if message of hope is the right thing, or what's the route in to kind of starting to dismantle all of this stuff as quickly as possible, assuming that that's the desire?
I think once you really remember and can feel what that remembering feels like, that any power that any external authority has over you is power that you have granted to that authority. It all came from you. Like, there is no power in any of those structures except that which we give it. And so my wife and I, we just stopped. No, we don't want to do that. No, we're going to cancel that health insurance. Nope, I'm not going to do it that way. No, none of our kids are going to school. No, our babies, we'll have them at home. If we need your help, we will ask you. Thank you very much for providing it under those circumstances. When you're, and your family might think you're crazy or, whatever. No, I just want to work like 2 hours a day. And then I actually want to be here for my kids. And I don't plan like world trips. We don't, like, I'm just here because I see what that does to a child. And I see my oldest is 22. So I've just been here for those 22 years. And it's amazing. It's nothing I'm doing. It's what we're not doing. Because like humans are genius. So how do you do it? One thing at a time, you dismantle. Like I'm a burn it all down kind of person, or at least I used to be. These days, I try to be a little more graceful. I mean, I still want to burn it down, but I don't. But I used to. And so you can survive that way too. Or it can be a graceful shift.
So what sort of threads would you posit to me and the listener that we might have been taking for granted, but actually, as a result of this conversation, we might see it as a thread which we can pull on? What would you kind of just give us as some a starter for 10, if you like?
Well, you can start asking yourself to think about things you think are true and ask yourself, are these things really true? Do I have to do this? Does everyone have to do that? Does it have to look that way? Why am I doing it this way? Like you realize that most of your life is programmed by someone else, which is a shocking realization to have. And that's just the outside. Like we haven't even gotten to what you're feeling, which is what makes you do the things you do. Why does everyone wake up in the morning thinking that wouldn't it be nice if the world just showed me that I'm valuable? Like, does a dog do that? These are all learned behaviors. Why do we never feel like we have it together? Like we're in the right place? Like, where did we learn these programs? Because we weren't born that way. So when you start to realize how much of your current reality was engineered, step one is to see that. And once you see some of it, you just can't unsee it. And once you take a step outside of that box, like you can't go back in very well, like I said, unless you want to lie to yourself and betray yourself. When you realize just how powerful you are, just how capable you are, just how perfectly designed for your path you are, doesn't that feel different? When you feel different, you see different. You make different choices. You charge different amounts of money. You work with different like qualities of people. So the good news is like we are the problem and we are the solution because everything you're experiencing right now is just a reflection.
I've heard different versions of what you've been talking about and what we've been talking about in this conversation over the years. And I'm going to reflect back to you now that this is the first time where I have experienced it in such a practical way. And you mentioned earlier that your genius is the lady that took you through human design. What was it that she said?
She just said that that was part of kind of the trajectory I'm on to show people, to give them direction really into themselves, right? But to do it in a way that's practical, that empowers them and inspires them to be better versions of who they are. Like that's really what I get paid for. Like I can see a better version of you than you can see. Like for the most part, I'm not talking about, obviously I don't know for you, but in general, we are not trained to see the best version of ourselves. And when we get a glimpse of that, it's a great feeling. And when you write a sales letter from that perspective, it's a completely different tone. So everything can shift. And all that had to happen was you looked at yourself differently and realized, oh my goodness, that thing that is so easy for me, it's not easy for everybody. And if I don't charge a lot for that thing because my programming tells me that I must sweat and bleed and toil to get my daily amount, then I'm stupid. Like, then I'm a slave. I'm a slave to the programming. It won. I'm out. Like nobody needs to do that.
I know in your emails you refer to the matrix a few times, and you've described you use that term even in our conversation, the 3D matrix. Rob Drummond said the other day, the Matrix. It's one of the few films that's both science fiction and a documentary at the same time.
Just crazy. I didn't know that at the time, obviously, because I was still so in it, and I was raised like very religious. So there's a whole nother layer of weird garbage going on that I had to sort through. But if anybody was better prepared to having to make a long journey to find himself so that maybe he could help other people do that, I guess I pulled that ticket.
So you mentioned something there about your childhood, which we didn't know about when we were last at that time of your life. What denomination were you brought up in, and kind of just dig into and unpack a little bit more of the baggage? I don't know if baggage is the
Yeah.
right word.
Oh, it's a good word. Baggage is an appropriate word.
Okay, all right then.
I was raised Mennonite, which is a few clicks on the dial more liberal than Amish. So we drove cars, we had electric, we looked largely normal. Although the schools I went to, we had chapel every day. The girls had to wear dresses, and a scandal was like someone finding a cigarette at the school. So those weren't the damaging things, though. The damaging things are telling a child that they're irreparably marred for all of eternity unless they believe a certain thing. The damaging things are filling a child with fear about what could happen to them if they don't conform. I mean, school does these things too, but religion really, that comes from your parents who you love. I don't know at what age you discovered that your parents were just normal people, but it took me a long time. Like, they're perfect for a while. So everything goes in, not to mention that until you're 7, like you're largely in a alpha brainwave state or even theta. So everything goes in unchallenged, which is why they start school so young. Like that's when they need them. If you want to keep your kid out of school, like that's the time to skip because those imprintings are so deep. But religion to me, I mean, living with your heart requires no man-made institution. Loving your neighbor as yourself requires no rule book. These are not difficult concepts, and they are not man-made concepts. Otherwise, we would do them more regularly. So to me, looking back, like I said, the control structures, I wouldn't be here doing this if they hadn't existed and I hadn't gone through them. But now getting to raise kids, like I said, I have 10. So I get to see what happens when you don't do this. I mean, my daughter was at a local church thrift shop, saw the traditional picture of Jesus, still white for some reason, asked me if it was a baseball card. That's what I did. I laughed my socks off. And I'm like, yes. That's when I know that I have altered the course of the future. They can go do that if they want to. But as their parent, they're just as a divine spiritual being as I am, they're just in a small body. And so if I'm gifted with this time to shepherd them and keep them from harm's way, I'm going to do my best not to pass on any of the wounds. I mean, I've done enough already that I'm carrying to them. And when you see them avoid some of them, it is amazing. You know how, I don't know how kids are in your part of the world, but the kids that go to school here lose the ability to talk to an adult like a human. They don't walk up to an adult and say, "How's your day? What are you doing?" Which is like an obvious question to ask another human if you find yourself sitting beside one of them on a bench. But when you go into the system, these artificial barriers are created, the same artificial barriers that say a 15-year-old would have no business playing with a 4-year-old. But like in real life, when you don't have those barriers, they do that all the time and they each like it. So these artificial mind prisons are created that shift behavior, which is of course the whole point. Shifting how we feel changes how we speak and act. And you can't control the amount of people on this plane with physical controls. Like it's just not practical. You have to get them to police themselves. So look at all the institutions we have that feed us those programs. We do a very good job of policing ourselves. How do you feel when you go out of the house without a driver's license? Do you get a feeling in your body?
You don't have to have a driver's license on you in the UK.
Okay. Is there something like that you need?
Let me think.
Because over here, when you do, because I still get that feeling, even though I haven't had one for a long time.
You haven't had a driver's license?
No, I mean, we're out. We just stopped. So that's a rather extreme position, and it doesn't.
That's burning the house down, isn't it?
That is burning the house down. However, it becomes easier and easier the longer you go to make decisions about what your energy is going to perpetuate and what it's not. And I've unfortunately become far too principled to contribute to the disaster and evil that I see going on. And so I refuse. And so I've taken a lot of preparations to make something like that a little more doable. But my only point was that when I first started doing that, the emotional conditioning that would come up with not having that little permission to live piece of paper in my pocket. That's sad. That's insanity. And it is so widespread. It's just normal, but it's not normal. So my kids get to avoid garbage like that as much as possible. I mean, they still have fallible parents who grew up with all of that. So we're still working on it.
Talking about those strong feelings, I've experienced it recently. Cash flow slump, stopping driving, which you know about, and coming out of that, and the income expectations I had with the sales job that I got that stopped me driving didn't materialize, and you, you talked about earlier, and I had to smile when you said about the squeamish feeling you had when you mailed in your credit card payment late. So I'm in a position now where I've actually been given breathing space by a couple of credit card companies and a personal loan that I had, and I've been really, really low. Not all the time, just over the last few weeks. And I guess, well, what would you say to me about about that?
I would say that the work we're here to do, given that we're creative beings, we're creating all the time. We're creating, this is my understanding. And so we'll just preface it with that. But it's also my experience. We're creating in alignment with the vibration we emit most of the time. So when I learned that, when I proved that enough to myself that there was some shred of truth there, it's not like if I vibrate a certain way, my life changes tomorrow.
So, is there a particular moment that you remember proving that? What was that?
Sure. I was back during my fire hose business learning days. I read Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell
Maxwell Maltz.
Maltz, right? Movie of the mind, right? I actually did it. I imagined us living somewhere near water. We were in the middle of Arizona, mind you, so in the desert. So every morning I was on the second floor. I would open it up and see the ocean. I'd walk down, make coffee, check my bank balance. Like this was my movie over and over and over. 6 months later, we were living by one of the Great Lakes, not the ocean. Couldn't quite see it from where I'm at. 6 months later. Unfortunately, I'm a little slow with all of this because looking out my window now is what I saw. But that was 10 years later. But that was the first proof in my own life that you become what you are. You see what you are. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the real work is learning how to use this tool that we have. The tool is part in your mind that focuses vibration, but it's largely in your body. Like what is actually happening? You can live in fear and not discipline your vibration, which I did for a long time. And you can get a life that will give you many reasons to live that vibration and continue it. Or you can choose something else. And so in any situation, again, you're not being psycho and saying what's happening is not happening, but you can quickly correct yourself to emanate the vibration and feel it through your body of what you want to be living. And that changes reality.
I do that every morning. So I guess it just takes time to catch up.
It takes time, although it depends on the people. I've worked with people who hours later something happens. Like that's not been my experience, but isn't that amazing? So who knows, but that's the skill to improve. That's the thing to experiment with.
The visualization.
And like how it fits with what you're feeling. You can visualize something wonderful and have your cells of your body. I mean, like my wife does somatic experiencing. She's in the middle of a long training for that, right? In that world, they say that your subconscious is the knowledge of your cells in your body. Like Maxwell Maltz never said where the subconscious really was. You think it might be the field or maybe somewhere in your brain, but like your cells remember. And we have all this trauma stuck in there, whether it's like a big, terrible thing or a small thing, like the client saying, you did the wrong project. Like that energy gets stuck and that contributes to the vibration, which affects our reality that we see tomorrow and the days after. So like we are this amazing canvas with tools that we don't even understand, that if we focus on learning how to use them better, we can affect enormous change. To me, that's worth time and effort.
So when they've been in your orbit for 4 years, they've got to know you. Typically, what point are they at when they pick up the metaphorical phone?
I don't attract the masses, obviously. So I'm never going to have like 1 million people on my mailing list or anything. In fact, depending what I'm investing in lead generation and just getting noticed, some years I've done none, some years I've done a lot. The list largely stays the same size, but the quality improves because I scare a lot of people away, right? And so the people that are left over time really want to hear from me, you know? And so my list has been tiny, like hundreds in past years when I started over and said, if you want to come along, sign up again. I mean, that's a great way to really shear things down. I discovered this was like 5 or 6 years ago, but they come at all different stages because the guy who's running a $5 million training business for dentists, like I worked with, he sees, oh, this guy does things differently. If I did things differently, like I would, like there's a different conversation going on about the same person compared to the guy who spent 40 years in corporate America and wants to start his own thing. Say I do the same thing, kind of, largely, although I would say my inputs are immediately noticeable in a $5 million enterprise compared to someone who's just starting. But they're all telling different stories. And that's why the daily emails or any media platform that is consistent to me is effective, because it allows someone to sell themselves on you in the way that's best for them. Like, I didn't have to come up with that sales pitch. They pieced it together because I supplied the raw material that they used.
Well, that was your email today was about that.
I say that all the time because it's just amazing to me that that is how it works. You get a sale with no coercion where they don't think less of you because you closed them. Like, you never flip over into that, oh, Jason's doing the sales thing now. It was kind of an act, what he said before. No, it's very consistent. And the fruit just drops when the fruit is ready. I also talk about that a lot, kind of just farming here. You don't go out and yell at the apple tree because like it didn't convert. And yet we do that about business, but business is just people. So it's kind of weird how we have anointed ourselves with this superhuman level of control we think we're supposed to have over what's going to happen. And those people get on the front of magazines. They're like one or two who like said, yes, I exerted my superhuman control and this happened. But like, I'm sure you've tried it and it didn't happen. I know I've tried it and it didn't happen, because that's not normal.
What's your take on the S word and the F word? I got a sense of what it would be, success and failure.
Oh, I was going to have to ask you what those words were. Well, boy, what does that even mean anymore? I mean, I chased success for so long, just like I chased a lot of other carrots for so long that I didn't make. Like, the definition of success, if you don't make it, it can't be success. So I got to a point where I was like, wait a minute. I work with people who are successful, but I'm so unlike them in so many ways. Like, if I had $3 million in the bank right now, I wouldn't go buy a car. Like, I don't even care. I don't need you to look at me a certain way. I don't need to do things like the alphas do. I have no desire for adrenaline. Like, I have no desire to hang glide or like parasail or like, give me a day where I learn one more thing about myself that I didn't know yesterday. That's pretty cool. Give me control over my life and my time. That's pretty cool. Allow me to raise my children exactly how I want so they can show me all the ways I'm stupid and I can like accelerate my learning. That is success. Failure to me is not being yourself. And certainly some people go through life maybe maybe it's not their path to do that kind of work this time through. That's fine. I have no idea. But for anyone who knows that the real them is in there somewhere and doesn't go get that being, I would call that a failure, or at least a missed opportunity, which is the only opportunity.
What's the most recent thing you found out about yourself that you didn't know?
I found out that I still say yes when I mean no too many times. No, I don't want to work with you. No, I don't want to do this thing. No, I can't have it done by Tuesday. No, I will not do that again because you lost it the first time. For like a recovering people pleaser who developed that survival skill very aggressively because it did him good and it kept him alive and it kept him from feeling an emotional intensity in the form of disappointment that he couldn't deal with at the time. Like, I get why it's there, but boy, does that sucker stick around. And so when I discover a new place that I haven't yet rooted it out, that's a good day. But it's also like, dude, are you ever going to get to the bottom of this? Because it's not like you're going to live forever. So Might want to just get on with it already.
Every day's a school day.
It's amazing. And the kids really are like, if you want lessons, holy crap. They're like the mirror for every bit of emotional disaster you have going on inside of you. They will show you every day. And if you don't get the lesson, you'll get it again.
Is that why you had 10 to maximize the learning opportunity?
I'm either in the remedial program or the advanced program, and I don't know which one it is at the moment. But I certainly wouldn't be who I am without that. It was not a plan. We were going to live in New York City, professional musicians, maybe a dog, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, maybe with a Beamer if we wanted to pay for a parking space. That was the plan. So there you go. This is why I don't get hired as a professional planner. My experience has shown I suck at that skill.
Do you think that that version of Jason would have any comprehension of the Jason that I'm talking to now?
No. I mean, I don't know how this one survived that one, frankly, because it is so different. And some of the decisions that we've made in our life, like, certainly offer the potential to really be put in some confrontation with people who would not agree with the way we're living.
Can you be more specific about that? Sounds quite vague.
Well, I mean, not having a driver's license, not doing things that a good upstanding citizen is supposed to do, even outside of the realm of business. Although even with that, I chanced upon private membership associations as an alternative way to do business that don't require a corporate entity. So I haven't, no LLCs, no nothing that exists by permission of the state do I work in. And actually one of the things I do is help other people. I started an organization with other people called Freedom Works to help. Like a couple years ago, if you said the wrong thing as a medical professional, you were done. My wife was a practicing midwife, but she didn't want a license. I mean, she had one, but she got rid of it when it started forcing her to make decisions she knew were not in the best interest of the women she was helping. So she gave it back. We had to figure out, how do you still do this work without being a criminal? So she started a PMA, private membership association, that allows professionals to do work outside of licensure. If you ask an in-the-box attorney, they'll laugh at you. Accidentally, we've been living this way for the last 15 years. So like, we fundamentally just have restructured the way we live to stop giving energy to the things we don't want to see. We're not fighting them. We're not in battle. We're just living our life, raising our kids, but we will not feed something that we don't want to live.
So do you pay tax?
It's a long story for another time. I will tell you that everything we do is according to the law. We follow the law better than the law. What is all this from? This is just from me trying to build a bridge between philosophy and principle and practical expression in the world, because I just couldn't handle having all this principle, these deeply held things. Like, I didn't choose them. They chose me. They're part of who I am, with no practical way to show them in the world. To me, that's very frustrating. So we went to a lot of trouble to figure out all the ways that we could live in alignment with what we believe. Same thing with business. Took a long time to build a bridge between, can you actually follow your heart and still make it?
I referred earlier to the email that you sent me yesterday. That you've had so many zigs and zags that you're positively dizzy. What are some other parts of your non-straight line journey that we've either just skated over, or might be of interest or inspiration or help to the listener?
Well, business-wise, I've reinvented myself so many times that I realize it's not deadly any of the times.
Most recently this year.
Yeah, I mean, so the last couple years, when I was getting this private membership association stuff off the ground, when we were going through the mess that the whole world has gone through in the last 4 years, like, freedom and sovereignty and what that meant was way more on people's brains than it ever had been. If I had written the emails that I've written over the last 4 years, 10 years ago, I would have been committed to some institution, right? But all of a sudden, people saw in their own real life that maybe things aren't the way they want them to be, and especially for their children. And now that we're kind of out of that and we're returning to we're definitely on a different path. Like, you can't forget that time, and people aren't forgetting. But I realized that the one thing I haven't done is really gone out into the world as myself And since I've spent so much time figuring out who that could be, that maybe this now is the next logical iteration of the way I package myself for the world. My work has not changed because I have the daily emails. One day it's called X and the next day it's called Y. It just continues. I just keep helping people. And so no matter where you're at, it is infinitely reinventable. But hopefully each time you do that, you get closer and closer to some invention that resembles the truth of who you are. That seems like a worthy quest.
Do you think we ever get there? Do you think you'll ever get there?
Probably not, but it just like in mute. I mean, I've only ever chosen things where like you're never done. So like as a musician, you're never done. As a business person, I couldn't be done if I tried. Like I have a beach, I like sitting on it, but the idea of only doing that, like that's not why we're here. So you can't do that either. So there's always becoming. To me, like becoming is like it's a verb, but it's a state of being. You know, just like when you do enough work on yourself to realize what an active state surrender actually is, or presence. Like it looks like you're not doing anything, but it's really like an extremely activated situation. And so, you know, you always talk about zigging and zagging. I think what the problem for me is my definition of straight is wrong. I think that's where I have to look. Because when you look back, there is a straight line, but our perception is so powerful that we're zigging and we're zagging. But like that's not how energy travels. Energy travels like where it was set. And so our lives like have a through line that is sometimes it just defies our perception. And when we try to put it in a little box, especially before we've lived it, is really I think where the problems begin.
I asked you earlier about that version of Jason. What is that thread that does? You said you're not quite sure how you lived through that version.
Yeah.
What is the thread? What is the thread that connects those two very different versions of the same human?
Well, he's the same being. The one that existed from probably about 4 years old to 30 something was just stayed as a little boy, like a very scared little boy, even though his body grew. So the central core has not changed. This is someone who delights in the magical, who believes that everything is possible. Is extreme. Like when I was a child, I was extremely self-interested. Like I knew what I wanted and I did everything I could to get it. The conditioning of the world makes that such a faux pas to live that way because they only characterize that one way, that if you do that, other people will lose. No one ever gives us the idea that we can all be self-interested as we should. We can all be directed by our desires. We can all be extremely focused on achieving them and still make the world better. Because we're all self-interested anyway. It's just whether or not it's a secret. And like, why shouldn't we be? Like, you should be interested in you. You should be enamored with yourself. You should say, I am great at doing this thing, everybody. Who would like help? Like, that should not make us feel weird. So I'm the same guy as I was. It just took me like a 25-year detour where I had to forget, then remember.
We're running out of time, Mr. Leister.
Aren't we all? Yes.
You've got a beach to go sit on. I mean, it does beg the question: what does a day in the life of Jason Leister look like?
I wake up usually between 4 and 5. I don't have an alarm clock. I haven't for a long time, but that's just when it happens. My work usually starts around 5. Like I write that email every day, work on other stuff. I'm writing books for people, writing books for me. My phone calls are from 8 to 10 because of the time zone difference with most of the world. So pretty much after that, I'm done. Of course, when you go and let your own development get all tangled in your business, like you're never done and you can never stop and you can never leave it. It never leaves you alone because everything reminds you of like what yet is left undone and the growth that hasn't happened. And so like I'm living it all the time, as we all are. I just have destroyed these like artificial compartments that we're taught to build for like what goes here. I'm going to work on myself here, but not over here. And I'm just doing it all the time. Because that's what an artist does. You can't tell an artist to create on a schedule. You can't tell an artist to stop creating. Like once you figure out how to get in touch with that natural creative thing you've got going on, whatever that looks like for you, like you don't want to give that up. that's your rhythm. That's like what you pay attention to. Like that is your truth. That's the right thing for you. And so you can build a life that allows for flexibility like that, but it requires a very different way of thinking. And to just always, like, I realized I was running the wrong race. I was trying to get better at somebody else's race. And luckily, if I had really succeeded, we wouldn't be talking because I'd be living a lie.
You'd be betraying yourself.
I didn't well enough. I didn't succeed well enough. So I had to figure out another way.
I'm eternally grateful that you did, Jason, and also for you taking a couple of hours to chat to this tall, bearded, bald bloke in Coventry, England.
I would be in bed by now. I haven't even seen 9:30 in a while or whatever time you said it was.
Really?
Yes, when you have a 4-year-old, days end pretty early.
You're going to sit on the beach today?
We will go there. This is the one day of the year where I actually have 2 podcasts to record, which is cool, but not normal.
It's like London buses, they say. Do you know that saying?
No, what do they say?
Well, if something's like London buses, it's like they don't come and then 2 come at once.
And then they all come at once, yes. I have learned not to argue with the universe. I spent many years trying to do that, but it just works better when you
go with the flow.
Give up resisting.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure for me too. I do have a couple of questions which I ask every guest at the end. I intimated both of them to you. The first one is, how can the listener and I help you the most right now?
Well, 2 things, I think. Obviously, it's funny to say that I work really hard trying to find more people to write to, but like that's what I do. So if you want to hear more, my website is jasonleister.co, Leister. I think the more important thing, though, is my ideal, which I don't always hit, obviously, because I'm still human, although I'm working on it, is to stop doing things out of fear and to stop avoiding doing things out of fear. I came to a point where fear was so my whole life. I have a long relationship with fear. Like that feeling that hits your gut before your conscious mind even engages in the morning. That was me for a long time. That fear is what comes. I thought it was the problem. That is not the problem. That is a symptom of giving your power away, because you can't claim that power and feel it in your gut and have that fear feeling. They don't fit together. So if that feeling is happening, it's because you're giving it away, which is what we're all trained to do pretty much every waking moment. I just had to make a rule that I was done. Do nothing out of fear. Don't not do anything out of fear, unless a lion's chasing you. Just trying to get as close to that ideal as possible changes a life pretty drastically.
And the ripple effect of that changes others too.
Everybody. Because people are scared to death. And when they get around someone who refuses to be controlled by that, it is contagious. And it's beautiful. And they can wrestle with it and take it and make it their own and have it be expressed in their life any way they want, or in no way, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it makes the world better.
What a beautiful way to end the conversation. The last question I want to ask you, as I ask all guests, is who do you want to give the gift of this conversation experience to? And anyone can have this conversation, but they can either have it sooner or later. And to have it sooner, this costs a little bit of money just to kind of, open the schedule. So who do you think would really value this experience?
Can we practice nepotism? Can I say my wife?
Of course you can.
That's probably who I would choose.
Okay, great.
Yeah, she is a force of nature, really.
Yeah, I'd be able to compare notes, sort of get there's 2 sides to every story, aren't there?
You will find out just how human I actually am. But I'm okay. I'm okay to go there.
No, your secret's safe with me, Jason. It's cool.
That's good. That's good. We just can't let it get out. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just this conversation is between you and me. Well, and the listener as well. So
that's right. That's right.
Well, yeah, just on behalf of this one, thanks so much for giving up your time this morning.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you very much for doing this. And the answers are all out there. They're often right in front of our face.
Or more pertinently, the answers are in there.
Yeah, sometimes they whack us in the face. They're so close. So, best of luck. Great doing this.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Not a Straight Line. If this conversation helped to reorient your internal compass or inspired you in any way, please let us know by heading to podcast.notastraightline.life/rate and leave a rating and review. Thanks, as always, to Matthew Bliss of MB Podcast Services for his exquisite engineering of this episode. If you'd like him to help you with your podcast, contact details are in the show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or there's someone whose non-straight line journey you'd just love to hear, then please visit podcast.notastraightline.life/guest. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next week for another amazing, deep, inspiring non-straight line journey. Love you.